Alright, so I want to apologize for the lens flare coming out there. It's like middle of the day. I don't normally record vlogs during the day, so apologize for that. So, without further ado, let's get into the path. This is the final episode of the Ventress and Vaz storyline arc, and wow, what a really good way to end it. Now, I just want to say beforehand that it's been a while since I read this. Like, I blew through this in like last section like an hour, and because it was that good, and also again, I have also keep in mind that it's been a while, so my memory might be a little fuzzy. But thankfully, I have my notes here, which I wrote shortly after reading it. And also, I'm a little tired and hungry right now, but this is the only time when I record the vlog, and I want to record it now, because if I don't, it'll never get recorded. But anyway, let's get into this. So, first, quick summary. In this episode, again, assuming I'm, like, hitting these episodes right, this feels like it could be one episode, but anyway. So, Vaz is sent out by the council to take out Dooku as a test of his loyalty, but unbeknownst to the Jedi, he recruits Ventress to take him there. You know, because Vaz has his own plan. And, oops, sorry. And also unknown to the Jedi, not Jedi, unknown to Vaz, Obi-Wan and Anakin are following him along. So they eavesdrop on Vaz, find out that he is with Dooku, and then they try and capture, both Vaz and Dooku. Vaz escapes with Dooku. Then they get into Ventress' ship, fly off, and then it turns out that Vaz, again, moral ambiguity, a little unclear, but it seems like he's just he wants ultimate power. He was evil the whole time, I guess, and he's using Dooku to get to the Emperor. So anyway, they crash land on the planet Christopolis. Ironic, considering this is like one of the first. Like, it's ironic considering that this was like the first place where we met Ventress in the show. So it's interesting that this is the last place that we see her, in one of the last places we see her in the show. They crash land. They escape into Dooku's palace, where he calls the Emperor, telling him, "Hey, send a shuttle, pick us up." Then the clones bombard the palace. Dooku escapes into his second hangar of Vaz Adventures, and then Dooku decides he's going to kill Vaz, but then Ventress puts herself in harm's way and takes the lightning instead. Sacrificing herself, dies. Dooku escapes. The Jedi show up, and Vaz is redeemed, and Ventress is given a proper burial. And such a good episode. I mean, from start to finish. I mean, first let's start with the ship sequence. I mean, first off, the whole bit of Anakin and Obi-Wan like spying on Ventress was really well done. There was a lot of fun, great banter there showing their friendship. Vaz's moral ambiguity was a little uncertain, though. I mean, apparently there's something in the comics about him wanting to see the Emperor, but at the same time, like, I don't know, there was just a little too much back and forth. He's good, he's evil, like, I could have done without the moral ambiguity. Like, I feel like he's, I don't know, like, I mean, the placeholder we got is really good, so I'm not going to fault it too much, but it's one of those moments, like, where it sags. But, I mean, once we get there, it's really good. I mean, we have a really intense lightsaber fights, which I wish I could see. I mean, like, oh my gosh, like, I love how they pretty much throw everything at Dooku. All these clones, all these gunships, they're, like, bombarding his palace. It's like, this is like the Dooku fight to end all Dooku fights. And seeing how this arc was probably meant for Season 8, this probably would have been the last big arc involving Dooku. And I like how Dooku does get injured. He is wounded and bleeding a bit. So he is mortal. Like, Dooku can be overwhelmed by numbers, which I thought was something good to establish. I wonder how much, because it's very explicit about the gore that Dooku has, so, and the injury. So I wonder how much of this would we have seen in the Clone Wars had this episode been produced? Because, I mean, Clone Wars is constantly... sorry, I blanked out. Because Clone Wars constantly is pushing the boundaries, and, like, there's swearing, romance, sexual innuendos. Like, how much of this would we have seen? Like, versus how much of it would have been, like, censored or, like, watered down. But, yeah. I like how throughout this arc, Obi-Wan, like, I love his relationship with Ventress. Like, he doesn't immediately assume that Ventress is evil. Like, it shows I really like the relationship between Obi-Wan and Ventress. Like, Obi-Wan gets Ventress. He knows her and understands her well enough that she wouldn't just do this for the sake of doing it. Like, there's a clear motivation and reason behind it. So when he calls her, it's not just Ventress. It's not like him talking to Anakin, like, you will be expelled from the Jedi Order. It's, like, very calm, and he's trying to be understanding. Because, again, he understands, like, how much she's going through. Let's see. I love the Return of Jedi parallels with Ventress sacrificing herself to save Vaz. That last moment of redemption for Ventress was well handled. I love, you know, how just everything becomes clear and then she redeems herself. And Ventress's death scene was real tragic. Like, while I was reading, I'm like, oh man. And oh my gosh, that funeral scene, like, it's just so touching. I mean, she gets this really elegant burial, and it's just really well done and really fitting and a wonderful closure of Ventress' story. Like, there's a lot of things about Ventress' story that are really well done. For one thing, it's a really good redemption story. It happens slowly and gradually over the course of, like, the show. And not only that, but Ventress' death, it feels appropriate, it feels set up. Like, it doesn't feel like they're just getting rid of her for the sake of getting rid of non-film characters. Like, it works. And I love how she does have an impact. Like, there's this, in the Kingdom Hearts series, there's this character called Xion who, like, is introduced, and she really isn't that significant. Like, I feel like you could write her out in the story when more else is the same, but Ventress feels very important. I mean, the fact that she helps the Jedi find their way, I thought was a very powerful thing to do. And everything about Ventress' story is well done. The only thing I'm a little bummed is that they glossed over Dooku's escape. I feel like this is something maybe the show would have showed a bit more, but I feel like Golden wanted to keep the focus on Ventress, which, smart for her. So that's all I have to say at this moment. Just, yeah, I mean, there's stuff I want to say about the novel as a whole, but I'm going to do a separate vlog on that. So I'll just say this. This wasn't as good as presuming this is a separate arc from the first half where it's dealing with Ventress and Vaz assassinating Dooku. This was the weaker arc. This arc wasn't as tight. It wasn't as consistent, but it still didn't sag that much, and it had a really good payoff. So I'm not gonna fault it too much. And even then, this is still a really solid arc. One of the best. It's in my top 5. Like, hands down, this is one of the best arcs that was ever written. It's such a shame that this wasn't completed. I feel like the animation, music, and voice acting only would have enhanced this story. At the same time, though, I am grateful that we did get this story. I'm glad that we got to see it. I'm glad that... Oh, my tongue hurts. Like, by my tongue. That we got to hear it. I mean, when I heard that Ventress, they were not done with Ventress, Like, Ventress was a character I loved. I was really wanted to know what was supposed to happen to her next, especially when one of the writers said her story was going to get very dramatic. Like, Filoni said her story was going to get very dramatic. So I'm glad we got to see this. I mean, I feel like a novel was a really good format to adapt Dark Disciple to. It really allowed it to be introspective, go in depth, and unlike the Son of Dathomir comic, which, while a really good story, I felt like was sort of just giving us the rough summary of what happened, this feels complete. Like, you can't really notice the gap. If she's skipping over anything or adding anything, it's all so seamless that I don't even notice it. I mean, the only thing I do notice is that it's clearly two arcs. I mean, one part of the book is dealing with Dooku, and the other is, like, it feels like a completely different story arc. But again, I understand that. I mean, I think Filoni just thought it made more sense to just do it all in one novel than just do it up. Because, I mean, the other option is he waits. I mean, assuming this is it, if this was one story arc, I guess Filoni didn't want to do, like, half of it in rough cut and then the other half in novel, because then we barely have a novel, and I think Filoni wanted to give this story better treatment than a comic book. So yeah, this is a really good format. And Golden did a wonderful job adapting it. I would like to see more. I mean, ideally I'd like to see stuff in rough cut. I think Filoni even expressed that's what he wants to see, but I wouldn't mind more novels. Like, obviously I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see Golden write more Clone Wars adaptations, but at the same time, like, every story on Clone Wars is very different from each other, so I don't know if Golden would be the right offer. No offense to Christy Golden if you're watching this. You did an amazing job with this. But, like, would you be able to adapt a story of a completely different style and tone? But yeah, I'm really glad we got to read this story. And yeah, I really hope that we get more Clone Wars stories, because I love vlogging about it. I feel like the Clone Wars is such a rich show of really deep writing. And this novel really shows that it surpasses anything we've seen on Rebels so far, which, I mean, I know that's a unfair complaint, considering that Rebels is only in its second season, but I mean, the characters here are just so rich, so in-depth, and it's like, oh my god. Like, this would have won, like, an Annie for sure, or some sort of a daytime Emmy. But, I mean, now we have one of the best novels in the new canon, which, again, I'll talk a bit more about that when I do my overview. So yeah, really good novel, really good arc. Again, know there's more stories, and I really hope this isn't the last Clone Wars story we get. And again, I know there's like a couple more they have in rough cut. I hope that they get the voice actors to finish those, especially considering that, you know, they do have some Clone Wars actors on the show, and I feel like you might as well just have them finish this. And that's all I have to say right now. Again, really good, really tragic resolution. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Did you like the ending, or were you like, eh? Comment below and let me know. And as always, like, dislike, comment, subscribe. And this is JStars360, and may the Force be with you. Until next time, take care.